Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. We're going to finally finish off our little tour of Rifts, South America, by finally talking about Brazil. There's like no trace really of modern day Brazil left in the future of Rift's Earth, while you will occasionally find some jungle tribes that have managed to like regain their numbers and their population. Most of the coastal population zones of Brazil were pretty much entirely obliterated during the cataclysm. There's really no Portuguese speaking populations in South America anymore in the Rift's future. There's Spanish speakers, a couple of different native language groups, and there's some areas like Bahia where people speak a Creole language that's a mixture of Spanish and native languages, some African words, and a little bit of Portuguese that might still linger there. But for the most part, Brazil as it was is gone. The northern half of Brazil has pretty much been flooded out by the Amazon. You could almost qualify the Rift's Earth Amazon as almost being a freshwater sea, except for the fact that it still flows towards the ocean. This extra volume of water is not because of just more rain and stuff, but there's like several permanent rifts that link to various water dimensions, elemental plane kind of stuff, that are feeding into the Amazon River. I mean, parts of it's like 100 miles across and such. It's chopped most of the northern half of Brazil into a bunch of islands. The largest island is Bahia, but I discussed that in the Colombia video because parts of Bahia used to be northern Brazil, but a good chunk of that island is also areas that used to be places like Guyana or Suriname. The next largest island that's in the mouth of the Amazon is Maga Island, ironically named since it's got a bunch of tree-hugging jungle elf hippies living on it, which I can't help but wonder if, the people making Avatar were aware that they were ripping off the jungle elves from South America so heavily with those movies, because down to their origins, the way they act as, peaceful biomancers who like live in tune with nature, and they worship trees, and their leaders are memory trees and wisdom trees. It's definitely Avatar on Rifts there with the jungle elves. They're also a common race across most of the eastern side of South America, but Maga Island is their center point. It's allies with Bahia, but it's much more that kind of retro primitive type magic society where it's actually really sophisticated, but you wouldn't know it to look at it because they seemingly don't have buildings as we know them on the surface. They'll build stuff like under roots and stuff and keep it hidden, and they have their type of bio magic, allows them to like reshape plants and animals to do things. They're real similar to the Lemurians in many ways, except kind of slightly on the wrong side of the continent to really be able to like maintain like regular kind of contact or treaties with Lemurians as they emerge more into the setting. And the rest of the Amazon River and the smaller islands, like a lot of them are just abandoned patches of wilderness, but some of them are also been turned into pirate havens. Like two of the bigger ones that are named there's Kairang's land, which is ruled by a type of demon called a Rathos, which comes from wormwood. There's another island that's kind of like demonically themed pirates called a Nightmare Island that's ruled by a dude named Karkan, who's a shifter from another dimension who's slowly turning into a demonic entity. If you were to bring Minion War stuff into South America, I feel Karkan's like a good candidate of somebody who'd be like someone who would sign on with the demon side of the war, try to like, get himself a little position of power, something like that. There's also a major Splugorth port there called Slaver's Port. Original name, I know. Guess what they sell there and trade there? Obviously, wheat and rice. You consider that it's kind of like a home base for these people. Traveling in and out of the Amazon doesn't mean you're going to be being hit by pirates constantly. That's where they go home to put up their boots. But most of them, will actually range quite a good distance away from South America. Bahia is also kind of technically a pirate island, except they'll send their pirate ships off into the Pacific, going past their Colombian allies for safe passage through their waters until they get across, the island strip that used to be the Panama Isthmus, so they can go out and hit whatever targets they have out there in the Pacific that the Bahia pirates would be trying to strike at. The southern half of Brazil is a bit more intact. Whatever kind of continental plate breakage that has occurred in the main body of South America isn't quite as bad there, although something has caused like some sort of crack to have formed so that a chunk of the Amazon veers and goes entirely southward down towards the Silver River republics, kind of almost creating an island out of the eastern wedge of the continent, albeit like it's just a river. It's not like it's a full oceanic trench or anything, or a break in the continental plate. So it's still all the same continent. Within that little wedge is where you find New Dracona, which is a city founded by dragons and lizard men from Atlantis, who are followers of the Church of Dragonwhite, and they've named their new land Lagarto. It's ruled by a dragon behind the scenes named Malistrith, who has a puppet lizardman king named Sleet. And they're, of course, serve Stifenfall and the Cult of the Dragonite back in Atlantis. They're becoming Atlantis's primary, front operation on the South American continent, even though they're, like a second stage puppet vassal kind of state. It's not like it's being openly run by the Splugorth like Slaver's Port or Gorth over on the other side of the Atlantic on the African coast. It's still nominally a kingdom of dragons and lizard peoples of all different sorts, and it's been building up its technology and rattling its sabers about going to war for a long time. The implication is that it's probably going to try to invade Maga Island, since it's right next door to it. But apparently, according to the information in the Rift's Aftermath book, updating the setting for the year 109, Malistrith has ordered his forces to attack and try to conquer the cities of gold. The cities of gold are scattered out there in the jungle areas of southern Brazil. There's 3 of them. They're mysterious, isolationist kind of colonies. Each has their own very individual vibe. Pardon me. Cibola is the closest to Lagarto. Cibola is an interdimensional market run by a being called Enix, who's a creature called a soul worm, which, it's a wannabe Splinkrith running a city that's basically a wannabe Splin. Cibola already was a trans-dimensional market that existed in a pocket dimension that has been merged onto Rift's Earth since the coming of the Cataclysm and the awakening of the ley lines and all that kind of stuff. It's kind of like an out-of-the-way, lesser market than Splinkrith or Phase World. It deals in more illicit goods. In some ways more approachable for characters, though, as a trans-dimensional market to visit on Earth, where you're not as likely to be, snapped up or enslaved by something demonic and terrifying from beyond the known, as one would when traveling around the Splin-dimensional market in Atlantis. Enix, he's got like this weird insect race called the Gatherers that do most of the basic labor. They got a bunch of robots. Several kinds of monster races live there. The Grimbor ape men have kind of started to spread out and colonize the jungles around them, kind of reverting back to just a kind of more simple, primitive, tribal kind of lifestyle. And they'll end up being the primary and first target that Lagarto will come across as they try to attack the cities of gold because of its proximity, and it also has good defenses, so it should be able to hold its own. Because of its nature, the other 2 cities of gold are not likely to come to its aid, though. The next one on Lagarto's hit list would be Omagwa. Omagwa is a city that's the deepest position within the Amazon and the closest to the Amazon River. A bunch of feline mutants from the Project Achilles, when the Cataclysm happened and all the mutant animals were being gathered to create the Achilles Republic. A group of the felines were led by divine visions to abandon the Achilles colony and head off north into the jungles, where they were found by a city that was created for them by a trio of feline gods. Some other kinds of feline races have also been attracted to the city since then, but it's just a whole cat people civilization. Arguably probably the most approachable as terms of the cities of golds, in terms of if you're going to have like a group of player characters from there. I mean, like Manoa is also a good candidate, but you don't have to get quite so deep in explaining all the backstory and lore of true Atlanteans to be able to get across Cat City, ruled by cat people gods. You know, there's also a fair amount of like were jaguars and all that other kind of stuff. There's a lion race called the Sekhmet. A few things here and there from the Rifts Africa book, like the cat gods. There's like a Jaguar Mundi or something like that, who's like a Central American cat god. There's Simba, who's a lion god from Africa, and there's Bast, feline goddess from Egypt. Manoa is the third of the cities of gold. It was a true Atlantean colony of the original Atlantis. This is not like a settlement of modern true Atlantean dimensional refugees. It was a city created by the original Atlantis before Atlantis first vanished from Earth 10,000 years ago. So it was like a holdout point for true Atlanteans on Earth for quite some time, until it eventually got dimensionally kind of phase shifted, and then it was able to be re-merged with Rift Earths after the Cataclysm. It's controlled by Clan Skellion. They have a bunch of Amazon warrior women living amongst them, as well as some like Brazilian jungle legendary of these weird headless tribe people. And they're closer probably actually really to the Silver River Republics in terms of proximity than they are to Lagarto or the Incas to the west. However, they're still very much, you know, like they're not trying to make alliances with the world or really be widely known. They're just kind of protecting their area. You know, they will come to the aid of Omagwa when it falls under attack from Lagarto. They're prone to also becoming quite active if the Minion War, you know, erupts in South America, and you decide to bring any of that kind of stuff in to your South American setting. I think that's about it. Like, you know, aside from like random, you know, native tribesmen that you'll find out in the vast jungles, Brazil's basically just gone back to wilderness. You know, there's a few islands have been claimed by pirates. You have a island of jungle elves. You got your little land of enslaved lizard folk who are being run by a bunch of wicked dragons who are just using them to suit their own purposes and, you know, fulfill various long-term plots for the Splugorth. And then you have your 3 cities of gold. They're also referred to as El Dorado, but since North America has a Fort El Dorado state for the coalition, I just tend to just refer to them as the cities of gold anyway. So that's why I keep saying it like that, if you're a stickler for such things. But yeah, I guess that's about it. That's the end. No more South America. Goodbye. See you later. Hit like and subscribe. Leave comments. Stay waspinated.